Have you ever heard of business being compared to a game of golf? Here's an interesting take business coach Kevin Stansfield shares with us today, and one of the very key strategies that often business owners overlook when it comes to scaling. Let's have a listen. Kevin, great to chat with you today. Can we start? Share with me why business coaching for you? Why did you become a business coach?
I sort of fell into it. I mean, it's 18 odd years ago now. So it's dim, distant sort of memory, but I was in finance. So I was a chartered accountant, went into practice, then went into industry, grew a number of very large businesses with teams of people. And then they got so big that they became a bit dull and less interesting. They weren't as dynamic as they were when they were going through that growth phase. And I think I'd spent so many years building businesses and we sort of made it up as we went along. We had no real training. We'd done it a few times, but you just learn through making mistakes and trying harder. And I wanted to go and find out how to build a business. What were the things that we need to learn? So I went to university to do my MBA, my Master of Business, and that sort of helped, but probably asked more questions than it gave answers, because the MBA came very much from a big corporate. So when you're running a big corporate, this is what you do. But there was nothing in that. How do you take a small business into becoming a big business? A lot of things still weren't sort of there. And I read an article on another accountant who'd become a business coach and business coaching and how it was different to accountancy and consultancy. And I thought, that sounds interesting, because I love sport. So the idea of being a good athlete and want to be a better athlete, you go and find a coach. So I just thought, well, if you're a good business person, you want to be a better business person, then go and find a coach. And so I went to see Brad speak, Brad Sugar speak in 2015 now. So when he was young and, had an attitude, now he's old and has an attitude.
I'm sure he'll be happy when he listens to this back.
and he just sort of, the 6 steps, the 5 ways, these things just really resonated with me, and I could just see how impactful they would be for small businesses. And I just then at that moment decided that's what I wanted to be. I'd never heard of business coaching before, but it was new. It was, sort of exciting. I really felt there was a need for it in the marketplace, and that's why I joined ActionCOACH, and been here ever since.
So it's interesting you mentioned, the difference with studying large corporates versus small business. Why is it different, do you think?
The game is the same. The game is really about profitability and growth. That's why else would you want to be sort of within this. The difference is really down to the business owner. In a big corporate, you have multiple people doing multiple things. So you've only got to be good at sort of one thing in one area. Whereas a small business, the owners has to be great at everything. And I akin it to golf. I love my golf, and I got sort of addicted to it about 12 years ago. And it's one of those games that you can play at different levels. So, during COVID, I actually wrote a book about the similarities of golf and business, which is called The Great Game. How lessons from the great game of golf can help you win the equally great game of business. And golf is different to most sports because there's a handicap system. So it means that if you're a weaker player, you have a higher handicap, but it means you can play against good players because it evens the game out. But what I found was within golf and most sports, there's 4 types of people that play the game. There's the beginner. So we all start as a beginner. So in business, anyone that starts a business is in the beginner phase. So that's where it's all new, it's exciting, you're really open to learning. So there's lots of people that you meet that in that first stage of their business and in golf that, I just want to learn. I want to be able to hit the ball, within golf, and I want to get my first sale. And, that there's that real buzz that you get when you're starting out. But obviously you can only be a beginner for so long. At some point you have to make a decision, do you want to grow or do you want to stay, as you are? And at that point, there's a sort of a bit of a choice that you can become an improver. So the game that you're playing is to just get better at what you're doing, or you become a lifestyler. So within golf, you find a lot of people get to probably around about 18 handicap. If you understand golf, you'll know where I'm coming from. But you get to a certain point where you're happy, that the skills that you've got give you the results that you're after. And there you stay, there you stop, and you don't really go any further because you know that actually improving, you're going to get worse before you get better. So you're going to have to go backwards, and it's going to be harder before you move forwards. The improver, on the other hand, loves that challenge, loves that sort of change, practicing, learning things, trying different things, making mistakes, getting better. And they're prepared to go through that phase in order to come out the other side. And the fourth sort of phase within this is the master. So once you've mastered the game, then you're at a much higher level. But what you find with all the masters, and if you look at the golf pros on tour, they're continually practicing. They're still learning. They're still improving. So, but they're just at a much higher level. And that's what I found within business is, big corporates have got to a certain stage where the people at the top are thinking about different things. They're probably in acquisitions, mergers, they're dealing with shareholders. It's a different game at that stage. Whereas down at the small business is there's a lot of people that get stuck in this sort of lifestyle. I've built a business that provides my lifestyle, whatever that might be, earning $30,000, $50,000 pounds a year, taking up 40 hours of my week. That's what I think business is. But, what we have to get in there is say, no, business is a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Until you get to that stage where your business can be sold or you don't have to be in it, then you haven't completed the game. And really I suppose that's the big difference is the people that Action Coach and I focus on is generally those people that want to get out of that lifestyle of a business that just turns over, 500 million pounds and gives them a living into a business that can be sold, or can be grown, and run by other people.
I love that analogy to golf. I'm not sure I want to share what my handicap is, but I do like to make sure I have a buggy and champagne. They're my golf rules. That usually helps me play better. Kevin, tell me, what are the key differences when you think about business owners that are at that middle level versus the masters, and as an example, that have mastered the game of business or mastered the game of golf? What are the key sort of habits that you see are the difference? Because, you've got to be a master in golf. That requires a lot of discipline and patience, right?
Yeah, the attributes are very, very similar. If you look at top athletes and say, I choose golf because I love it, but in any sport, the commitment to winning the game is key to it, is understanding. The difference really within sport is understanding the game is very easy. Most sport games are very, very simple. You know what the outcome is. So if you're in golf and you want to win the PGA Championship, if you want to win an Open, you want to win the Masters, that's there. It's very easy to understand what winning looks like, and you can assess your ranking against everybody else. In business, that isn't as easy. It's very, very difficult to understand how well you're doing. Am I doing well? Am I winning my game? Am I losing my game? Am I just static in my game? So that's really where, within business, you have to set your own goals. You have to set what winning is for you. And winning isn't all about making money. It's not just about profit. A business is a vehicle to get you what you want in life. So if it's getting you what you want, then you can class yourself as being successful. But you have to be honest with yourself. A lot of people aim for here, achieve here, and then they bring their goals down to the level that they are, and they start to think that actually, this is success. Well, okay, if it is, then great. If you're honest with yourself and you're happy where you are and your lifestyle is good, then who are we to question that your business should be bigger and better? If it's achieving what you want. If you ask yourself that question truthfully, and the answer is, I could be better, I could be doing better than this, then you need to sort of start to think, okay, so is what I'm doing going to get me better results? And most of the time, people are doing what they've always done, and they're getting what they've always got. So learning new stuff, trying different things, and sometimes, we find as coaches, all we're doing is encouraging them to carry on doing what they're doing, because that is the way to do it. But because you've got no outside reference, it's not like a game of golf where you're playing against somebody else and you can say, you can hit the ball further than I can hit it, or you can chip better than I can chip it. You're very much in your own bubble, so you don't really get that external feedback that you need to improve.
Yeah, that's very true, isn't it? So when you, as a previous accountant, a chartered accountant, you would have seen a lot of businesses or business owners not sitting where they would have liked to have been in terms of results for their business. Tell me, what are the key things that you sort of look for now as a business coach, based on your experience as an accountant? What are the key things that you sort of see? It's much more proactive as opposed to reactive and compliance driven. Am I right there?
Yes. I mean, accountants are always, and they have to be cautious. They have to be reserved in the way they work. If you've got a reckless risk-taking accountant, then, okay, that's not what you pay them to be. You pay them to be almost the opposite of you. As a business owner, you want to be that entrepreneurial, take risks, drive, and the accountant saying, well, look at this, if you're worried about that. And I suppose, naturally that is still my default. I'm still a business owner myself. So when it comes to my own business, I'm far more sort of reserved than I am when I'm working with my clients. And I think you need that balance. You need that, let's take some risks, but what if it goes wrong? If it's all risk taking, then yes, you can get very successful very quickly, but also you can fail very quickly. If you're just looking at it from a financial point of view and not taking risks, then you're going to have trouble with actually growing. And again, it's like sport. In sport, sometimes you've got to take risks. Sometimes you've got to go for that shot. And, 1 in 10 will go in, and they're the ones that everyone remembers. So, I would say, you miss 100% of the goals you don't shoot for. So sometimes you have to take those risks. So I suppose I've learned that you've got to take calculated risks. That you've got to do your numbers. You've got to understand. You've got to plan it as much as you can. To see, well, what if I did this? What would happen? What's the worst that can happen from this? And if you can live with that, then take the chance. Then go for it.
And having worked with hundreds of businesses throughout your career and as a business coach, what do you find is the biggest challenge that business owners come to you with?
I think the biggest challenge, I put the growth of a business down into 3 phases. Okay, the first phase is basically getting it off the ground. Okay, so can you sell and deliver enough of what you do to sustain a business? Now, most business people can do that. Okay. Otherwise they just don't last. And, I tend not to work with startups because I tell them, look, you've just got to go and a bit like golf, you've got to go and hit some balls and decide whether you like hitting balls. Because, if you prefer drinking champagne and driving around in the buggy, then go and do that, because, this is hard work. This is going to tax you. This is going to take you to the lowest of lows, but give you the highest of highs. So if you're not committed to it, then don't bother. Go and get a job somewhere. So I tend to get them once they've been through that, and what they're now struggling with is phase two, which is that sort of changing from the business runs well when I'm in it, when I'm doing all the work, to I'm actually now putting the systems and the people in place to run my business. And that's where the majority of business owners fall down, is that second phase of taking that £500,000 business into a £1 million, £2 million business, because they've never done it before. They've done the sales. They've if they're a plumber, they've fixed taps. They've put in boilers. They've done all of that side. They can do the work, but what they haven't yet done is be able to build a system and train people and recruit the right people and maintain the right people and motivate the right people in order to have this business that works without them. So I would say that's the biggest challenge for most people is, sometimes they're lucky they employ great people, but then they can't hang on to them because they don't know how to work with them. But often they, in their haste to fill seats, they employ the wrong people, and then they don't deal with those people quick enough, and they end up with bad cultures in the organization, and it happens all the time. I can't say there's a client I've ever had that has got recruitment right perfectly every time. You get bad people, you get good people that turn bad. It's just the way it is. But that ability to deal with that and know when to get rid of them and when to train them, when to sort of work with them, is a key one. And most people will have one or two bad experiences and then stop. And that's like golf. I've hit 3 balls in the water, and therefore I'll give up. That's fine, but you're never going to prove you've got to. I don't know if you watched the film Tin Cup with Kevin Costner, where he sits there and he just hits the ball. Says, I'm not leaving until I get this ball over. And you need that little bit of mentality. I'm not going to leave this until I learn how to get the right people. And when I get the right people, I know that I'm going to go on to the next level. But the biggest stumbler for most people is their goals aren't big enough. As I said, they have a goal to start with, and then they get to a certain level, and then their goal comes back down to the level that they're playing at, and that's where they stay.
Why is that? So why does that happen? Why are people's goals not big enough often?
It's because the way human beings we're created. We are created for comfort. We're created to push to a point where we're okay, and then we're there for stasis. We're built for stasis because it's risky taking risks. Doing those things. So you go back to caveman woman days. You did enough to feed the family, and as long as you were able to maintain your family and maintain the species, then that was good enough, because, you just reproduced, the gene pool continues and everything's fine. But the way that the human brain has worked is we have this amazing neocortex that has an ability to project into the future. We're the only animal that can perceive things in the future, and then we can create them. So we have this amazing tool that we can use, which is where people like Elon Musk come in that are just a little bit crazy, but they win more than they lose. You could, if you lined up all the people that probably as so crazy as Elon Musk, there's probably hundreds that have failed over those years, but only takes one out of that 100 to push the boundaries, and suddenly we're all driving electric cars and things like that. Things that people like Clive Sinclair. I don't know if you remember Clive Sinclair, but he founded this sort of electric scooter thing. He was 40 years too early. The technology, the things weren't there when he had that sort of amazing creative dream. Yeah, Elon Musk comes along and he's able to do that. So we have these outliers, these people that are able to push us. And the same in sport. You've got your Djokovic's in tennis. You've got your Tiger Woods in golf. These are the people that push the boundary. And are very rare individuals. The majority of people are just happy where they are. So, and I say that if you're happy where you are and you've got what you want, I'm never saying that's a wrong thing. Life is to be enjoyed. It's not, business isn't the be all and end all. But if it's not, then you've got to understand that things have to change in the business to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you talk about how, you have to dream bigger. Often people's dreams aren't big enough or goals aren't big enough. It's interesting when you talk about how, most businesses that are in that, struggle to get into that middle ground of scaling is about systems and people. But here we are talking about goals as well. So it's very much, a lot of people think business coaching is about building the business, but it also really is very much about the person driving the business and their mindset, the goals that you set, the dreams. And I want to come back to systems and teams, because I think there's a lot of business owners that would be listening to this that have, maybe struggling to get over that hump of, scaling their business. You mentioned systems and teams. Is that in any particular order, or what comes first? If someone is sort of sitting at that crossroads of whether they scale this business or whether they walk away, what would you recommend they do first?
I suppose it's that whole thing, where you're starting from. If it's just you on your own, then you're probably going to have to just go and get some people. Okay, because you could sit and write the whole process down, but you won't have the time to do that unless you've got people doing some of the work. So these things, it's the chicken and the egg, which comes first. I think it sort of doesn't matter as long as they come together and reasonably quickly. But my view generally from where I've seen it work is you go and find the people. Yeah, you write the systems. The people then follow the systems. Yeah, if the people don't follow the systems, and some of them you'll find out can't follow the systems, or you just recruited the wrong people, you have to replace the people who then come in and they're new, and then they will follow the system. The problem with getting your existing people who have been doing it their own way to try and then get them to change, that's tough. That's like you coming to me with your golf swing, yeah, and me having to then, I've got to basically break this golf swing down and train you in a new way to swing the ball. It can be done, but it's hard work, and it needs the cooperation of that individual to do it. And some individuals are more than happy to do that, but sometimes you find people just don't fit. And the challenge often is those people are often good people, they're getting good results, but they're not able to make that transition into the bigger business. Because the other thing from a corporate side, a bigger business, corporate mentality is different to small business mentality. So the people that get you to here aren't always going to be the people that get you to here. And you see that even at top level, Steve Jobs, when, he built Apple and then was sacked from the board of Apple. Elon Musk within the businesses, they're great at the firefighting and, being involved in everything. But when it comes to actually running a system and a process, it's not the right mindset. So you have to make that decision, and that transition if that's what you're going to do.
And so sometimes, you've mentioned those two examples. Sometimes as the business owner, you aren't necessarily the right one to be taking the business into the next level.
Yeah, 100%.
So have you had any examples like that?
Yeah, I've got, I'm working with one at the moment, and the good thing for him, he knows it and he doesn't want to. He said, I don't want to take this business to that level. I know it has the ability. So, so for him, it will be an exit not at the maximum value of the business, but for enough value that he can then go and do phase two. He'll go and do something else. And that's the big thing for business people exiting their business, is the reason they don't is because they don't have a life outside of the business. The business is their life. And that is quite sad. And and that happened to my father. My father ran his business for 15 years, and the business was him. And then something happened and the whole thing fell apart and he never worked again. He was actually, I think, my age now, sort of, and that was it. That was his game over. And it's so sad that, people don't have plans for a life outside their business. I was with an MD, sort of owner of a business the other day, and I said, so what, when this business is done, what are you going to do? Oh, I don't know. It's, I'm going to die in this chair. I went, really? That's it. That's the sum of your life, is just sitting in that chair. That's hard for me. That's hard, because, I've seen, from the father, when it's taken away from you, there's nothing. There's a big void, and trying to fill that void is difficult. That's one of the reasons I got into golf, was because, when I decide to hang up my clogs, then, at least I can go and play golf. But the big thing is, and go back to the players again, is the tough thing within small businesses, you're playing because you have to, not because necessarily you want to. And that transition, when you have a commercial profitable enterprise that works without you, is if you want to carry on playing that game, because you enjoy it, then great, keep doing it. But if you don't, you should be able to pass it over to the people in the business, or you should be able to sell it. And then with the money that you make from selling it, you should have financial freedom. And that's really, for me, is the number one reason you have a business over having a job, is because you have the ability to grow value and wealth and financial freedom. So, you can be financially free. I mean, Brad, still quote his story, he was 24, I think 25 when he was financially free. So it's not an age, it's just a time frame. He did it in about 5 years. I reckon it's about 5 to 10 years to be able to do it. And, but if that can be your goal, then at least that, right, if I wanted to sell this business, I could, or it could work without me, and the money that I'm making, I can go and do other things if I want to.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make there, Kevin, around, people wanting to, doesn't necessarily mean creating a bigger business and scaling that with the view of staying in it and running it. It can be with the view of exiting the business within a period of time that is then going to give you XYZ, freedom, financial freedom, or opportunity to go and do something else. I think that that's a really good point for business owners that are listening, that, you mentioned goals, but the goals not being big enough. For business owners that want to scale their business, maybe they want to scale it to get out of it. What is that first step for them? Like, if you think about the story about your father, in business for 15 years, what could he have done differently that you see now based on your experience?
Well, that's in my other book, which is The Big Dipper: How to Survive the Rollercoaster Ride of Business Ownership. Because, what I found with my father was, he was an accountant as well. He was very successful, had a good job, and he gave up the good job and bought a business from a man in a pub. He wanted to be that entrepreneur. He was never an entrepreneur, but he wanted that sort of freedom and autonomy to build something. But he never set that goal. He never set, right, I'm going to buy this business, I'm going to grow it, and I'm going to sell it in 5-10 years' time. It was, I'm basically going to buy myself a job, which I'm going to work in until I'm 65. And then when I'm 65, I'll then decide what I'm going to do. And so I think, what he could have done, was very much, and it was a sign company. There were other sign companies at the time that grew very quickly and became national businesses. And that's he definitely had the ability financially to do that, but what he wasn't good at was recruiting the right people. So he recruited a salesperson who was just lazy, and I remember him coming home every night just moaning about this guy, was just absolutely useless. And now I think, well, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you get rid of him and get somebody better in? But there's that sort of, because we're generally people are nice people, we start to say, oh, he's got a family and he's got, without this job, then what will he do? And unfortunately in business, it's a little bit like a football team. You have to get rid of the dead wood. You have to refresh the team every season, and build a team that's going to do the best result next year. And I think as business people, we don't think in that way. We don't think like it's a game that, what is winning.
But I think sometimes that's in their best interest too. Like you might, by letting them go, they actually, go and do something else that's maybe more aligned with, what they should be doing.
Yeah, because if they're not performing, we've all been in that situation in a job we don't particularly like. We're not doing particularly well. We're miserable. But often for those people, it's hard for them to give that up and then go somewhere else because, well, what if the next place isn't as good? But generally every job you have is better than what you've left behind. So just because we know more of what we want and therefore, we can make more of it. So I do 100% agree that, working with people and saying, look, if you're not happy with this, then let's give you 3 months, find something that you're happier with, and you move on and we move on. I think it was.
So you mentioned team, so recruiting the right people, and maybe the people that you have got on the team aren't the right people. So either getting clear on performance or KPIs in terms of those existing team members, or move them on. And I think sometimes that's the hardest thing to do as a business owner, because you do feel sorry for them, or you're worried about their future. What's some tips that you can give on, having that tough conversation?
I think the first thing is clarity of what success for you is, and then success for what the team is. A lot of companies I go into where I'm actually coaching the middle management now, because the business owner's doing other things, and we need that middle management to gain the skills to step up to be able to take over. And the big thing to start with is always, I don't know what's expected of me. I don't know what winning is in my department, in my team. I'm doing the best I can, but I get no feedback as to am I doing a good job, a bad job. What does winning look like? Because we have to understand that, okay, as a business owner, we're playing the big game of business. Every one of our team members is playing the game within a game. So they're playing their own game, and they've got their own aspirations. Every single person in your team, you should know what their personal aspirations are. Because if you've got alignment between what they're trying to achieve and what you're trying to achieve, you've got success with that person. Where it goes wrong is where that person's alignment is over here and you're trying to go that way. We had it with a lady in one of our clients' companies, and she trained up through the company. She'd done a good job, but we were starting to find there were niggles with this person, and the big thing was the work we were doing didn't excite her anymore. She wanted to do other work, and she saw it in a different direction. For that, you've got to have that open and honest conversation. You've got to have those quarterly appraisals to understand, are they still in alignment or are they moving off? And then you say, well, look, if you want to go and do that, brilliant. That's okay. Go and find a job, but let us then replace you with somebody else. But where there's a scarcity mentality with employment, where you don't think you're going to find somebody else, that's what holds you back. If you knew there was 100 of those people, it would be easy to let them go and then bring somebody else in.
And so, we hear a lot of business owners that have hired people that maybe haven't been the right fit. And so they get stuck at that ceiling and need to hire more people, but often don't, and say there's just no one out there, that's no one available, no one out there good enough. I'm just going to have to continue to do it myself. What would you say to those business owners that find themselves, in that point?
I generally turn around to them and look them in the eye and say, you're telling me in a population of however many thousand are in there isn't somebody out there that could do this job. Okay, they may not be looking right now at this point in time, and I 100% agree that they're not there. But unless we're in the market looking for them, then they're never going to find us. And therefore we have to, if you're in, I had one of the companies that, before Action, we grew from a startup to employing 400 people in 6 years. We were constantly recruiting all the time. It was just adverts. Every single person knew that said, look, if you know somebody that wants to come and work for this company, then put them in touch, because we may not be ready right now, but in a month, 2 months, 3 months times, there will be a vacancy. And that's sort of the mentality, is if you are growth minded and you're saying, I'm going to go from here to here, then you should always be recruiting. And the big thing for a lot of people is they see recruitment as expensive. I'm going to have to pay a recruitment fee for everybody. But if we use the ActionCOACH recruitment system, of placing adverts. Now, a lot of job boards these days are free. You just keep that advert going. You use the group interview system, which now is even easier because we just do that on Zoom. And you just do a Zoom interview once a month, and out of that, if you find nobody, then fine. You just do it next month and you look for that talent pool that you're after. Every football team, has somebody in that team that is a talent scout looking for the next player. They're going down to the clubs, the low level leagues, looking at the juniors. They're developing their team. They have a strategic human resource strategy. And that's the big thing I find in a lot of organizations, is they don't take human resources as seriously as they do sales and marketing. If they put as much effort in recruiting as they did marketing, they wouldn't have that issue, but they don't. Recruitment is always, oh shit, we need somebody, go and get somebody. Oh no, 3 months later, well, they're not particularly good. If you want to grow and you're saying, right, we're 10 people now, we want to be 100 people or 50 people in 5 years' time, that's 10 people a year we need to, or about 10 people a year we need to take on. That's nearly one a month we need to take on. Where's our human resource strategy around that? Recruitment, retention, and getting rid of the dead wood. There has to be that. So who's going to take that on? And generally, HR is given to the accountant because no one else wants it. And the last person that should be dealing with human resources is anybody with a finance background. So bringing HR in and giving it that position that you need strategically is vitally important if you want to grow. If you don't take HR seriously, then I don't think you'll ever grow.
That is an absolute drop the mic moment. I think, from all of the insights that you've shared with me on this interview, Kevin, I think that is just the biggest one. That's the biggest standout for me. A big BFO is that most business owners have got the sales and marketing strategy, but they don't have a recruitment strategy to grow the team and the people in the organisation that's going to get them from A to B. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. So to wrap up, Kevin, I want to just ask you 3 questions, your favourites. Are you ready? Question number 1, favourite business book?
Favourite business book? So many, but I think the one that every business owner, well, there's 2 that every business owner should read. One is The E-Myth. They should read that early on. And then if you've read that one, then Good to Great by Jim Collins. Those 2 just, if you don't read any others, you read those, you'll get a lot of the essence of business. Oh, and mine, obviously, that one there.
And who's been the best mentor or coach for you, Kevin, throughout your career?
I've learned so much from Brad, seeing Brad speak. And I think being in it as long as I have, a lot of coaches sort of get to a point where, Brad's saying the same thing over and over again. And that's because the same thing is so important that, the basics are really there. So I think that element of, his insights, and also, he has a way to actually just tell you as it is. And I think sometimes you need that. There's no fluff on it. It's just, if you're not doing this, then you're not going to be successful. End of story.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes 10 times for you to hear something before it actually sinks in. So, great. And what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
That I've ever received? Blimey. The best bit of business advice and life advice, and the one that really brought me to write the book was the B times do equals have. That simple little formula that has been the essence of Action Coach. I don't think enough coaches out there and people out there really they really go, be do have, but.
So what's just explain be do have for business owners that are listening.
So be do have is, there's 3 things for you to be successful at anything in life. Doesn't matter what it is: sport, life, family, business. And it's who do you need to be? So that's the internal thought processes. What are your thinking, your knowledge, times the do, the activity. So what are you actually going to do with that knowledge? Because just learning stuff and not doing anything isn't going to get you anywhere. Equals what you want to have in life. Okay. Now, out of those 3 things, who do I need to be? What do I need to do? What do I want to have? The most important is the have. And you look at any successful person out there, the clarity of what that have is drives the be and the do. So if you don't, that's why I said, we talked about the big goal, and it doesn't have to be a big goal. It just needs to be a clear goal. Let's make that, because not everybody wants to win Wimbledon or win a PGA championship. Whatever your goal is, as long as you've got clarity around what it is, and you can almost go and touch it, it needs to be far enough away that is going to inspire you. But then that goal, that have, then drives, well, who do I need to be now to have that? And what do I need to do to have that? And so if you're ever not successful, if you've really got that clarity around the goal, then it's going to be your be and your do's not working. So you're not doing enough or doing the right things, or you've not increased your knowledge to a point where you can achieve that. So you've got to work on one of those 2. Most people I find are very good doers. So they're working hard. They're doing, but they don't have any clarity what the goal is. So they're just they're in the hamster wheel running round, and they think, well, if I run faster, I'm actually going to get there. Well, you're not going anywhere. So you're just going to be exactly where you are in 5 years' time. So that for me was the best piece of knowledge I was ever given. And to really understand and dig deep into it has been a major part of, really sort of my life and what I've achieved today.
Great. Kevin Stansfield, thank you so much for the insights that you've shared with us today. Great to have you on the show.
Been a pleasure, Michelle. Thank you.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.